Welcome to Grimm English Channel. Today, we will listen to the story The Frog Prince by the brothers Grimm. This charming tale begins with a princess losing her beloved golden ball and meeting a mysterious talking frog who promises to help her, but at a surprising price. What secrets does this frog hold, and how will their bond transform her life? This will be an adapted version with familiar and simple English language so that we can easily listen and feel the story together. At the end of each chapter, we will learn and study some interesting vocabulary in the story. And right now, we will listen and learn English together through the story The Frog Prince. Chapter 1. The Lost Golden Ball. Once upon a time, there was a young princess who loved to play by herself in the royal garden. Her favorite game was to toss a beautiful golden ball high into the air and catch it again. The ball was shiny and bright, making it the princess's most treasured possession. One warm summer evening, the princess put on her favorite bonnet and shoes, deciding to take a walk through the nearby forest. She loved the cool breeze, the rustling leaves, and the birds singing their sweet songs. As she walked deeper into the forest, she came upon a cool, clear spring surrounded by green trees and colorful flowers. She decided to sit down by the edge of the spring to rest and play with her golden ball. She threw it up into the air, catching it over and over again, enjoying her quiet game. But then, as she tried to throw the ball a little higher than usual, she missed catching it, and the ball bounced away from her. The golden ball rolled on the soft ground and fell right into the spring. The princess ran to the edge trying to see the ball. She looked into the water, but the spring was very deep, so deep that she couldn't see the bottom. The princess began to cry. "Oh, my lovely ball," she wailed. "If only I could get it back. I would give anything I have, my fine clothes, my jewels, and even my crown." Her voice echoed in the quiet forest. As she sobbed by the water, a small green frog suddenly appeared. It had a round, bumpy body, large eyes, and sat right at the edge of the spring. To the princess's surprise, the frog began to speak. "Why are you crying so much, dear princess?" asked the frog in a soft voice. The princess, still surprised, replied, "I have lost my favorite golden ball. It fell into the deep spring, and I cannot reach it." The frog thought for a moment, then said, "I can get your golden ball for you, but what will you give me in return?" The princess looked at the frog with curiosity. "I can give you my fine clothes, my pearls, and even my crown," she answered. But the frog shook his head. "I do not want your clothes, your jewels, or your crown. I want to be your friend. If you promise to love me, let me eat from your golden plate, and allow me to sleep on your soft bed, then I will bring your ball back." The princess thought this was a strange request. She didn't believe the frog could leave the spring or really be her friend. But she wanted her golden ball back very much, so she agreed. "Yes, I promise," she said with a smile, thinking she could simply run away with the ball. The frog then dived deep into the spring. After a moment, he emerged with the golden ball in his mouth, dropping it at the princess's feet. Overjoyed, the princess quickly picked up the ball and ran back home, not looking back at the frog. She was so happy to have her ball again that she completely forgot about her promise. The frog called after her, "Princess, remember your promise." But she did not stop or turn around. She ran all the way back to the castle, feeling relieved and excited. She was glad to have her favorite toy again, and she soon pushed the memory of the talking frog out of her mind. The princess returned to her usual routine, thinking that she would never see the frog again. Little did she know that the frog had not forgotten her promise. Now let's pause to learn some new vocabulary that appeared in the last section. The first word to learn in this chapter is princess. Princess means the daughter of a king or queen. For example, the young princess loved to play by the spring. Next we have ball. Ball is a round object used for playing games. For example, she played with a golden ball near the spring. Another word is promise. Promise means to tell someone that you will definitely do something. For example, the princess made a promise to the frog. The fourth word is catch. Catch means to hold or grab something that is moving. For example, she tried to catch her ball but it fell into the water. Now let's look at frog. Frog is a small green animal that can live both in water and on land. For example, the frog offered to help the princess get her ball back. Moving on to agree. Agree means to say yes to a suggestion or request. For example, she agreed to let the frog eat from her plate. The next word is spring. Spring refers to a small body of water that flows naturally. For example, the princess's ball fell into the spring. Now we have golden. Golden means made of or colored like gold. For example, she had a golden ball which was her favorite toy. Let's also discuss play. Play means to do something for fun. For example, the princess loved to play with her ball near the spring. Finally, we have ask. Ask means to say or write a question. For example, the frog asked the princess to keep her promise. Chapter 2. The frog comes to dinner. The next day, just as the sun was setting, the princess sat down for dinner with her family in the grand dining hall. The room was filled with delicious smells from the royal kitchen, and the long table was set with fine silverware and golden plates. The princess was about to start eating her meal when she suddenly heard a strange noise. Tap, tap, plash, plash, coming from the marble staircase outside. The princess paused, listening carefully. Soon there was a gentle knock at the door, followed by a small voice that sang, "Open the door, my princess dear, open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words that thou and I said, by the fountain cool, in the greenwood shade." The princess froze. She knew exactly who it was. It was the frog she had met at the spring. She had forgotten all about him, but the frog had not forgotten her promise. The princess felt a mix of surprise and fear. She didn't want the frog to come inside, and she certainly didn't want him to eat from her golden plate. Her father, the king, noticed the worried look on her face and asked, "What is the matter, my dear?" The princess hesitated, then confessed, "Yesterday I was playing by the spring and lost my golden ball. A frog found it for me, and I promised that he could be my friend, eat from my plate, and sleep in my bed if he brought it back. I didn't think he would really come here." The king, who was a wise man, replied kindly, "My dear daughter, a promise is a promise. You must keep your word, no matter what." The princess felt embarrassed, but knew that her father was right. She slowly got up from the table and walked to the door. When she opened it, there stood the little green frog, smiling up at her. He hopped inside, tap, tap, plash, plash, until he reached the dining table. "Lift me up onto the chair," the frog said. The princess was hesitant, but she reached down, picked up the frog with 2 fingers, and placed him gently on a chair next to her. "Now, put your plate closer to me," the frog said again. The princess felt very uncomfortable, but she did as the frog asked, moving her golden plate near him. The frog began to eat from the plate, just like a royal guest. The princess watched in disbelief as the frog ate with loud, happy slurps. He didn't seem to notice or mind her discomfort. After he finished his meal, the frog looked up at the princess and said, "I am very tired now. Carry me to your room, so that I may rest on your soft bed." The princess's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. She didn't want to share her bed with a frog, but she remembered her promise. With a deep sigh, she picked up the frog once again and carried him upstairs to her bedroom. When they reached the room, the frog hopped onto the pillow and settled down comfortably. The princess, however, felt sad and confused. She sat on the edge of her bed, thinking, "How strange it is to have a frog for a friend." But the frog spoke gently. "Don't be sad, princess. You kept your promise, and that is a good thing. The princess lay down on the bed, keeping as much distance from the frog as possible. Soon, she fell asleep, tired from the unusual events of the day. The frog slept quietly beside her, and everything was peaceful throughout the night. In the morning, the princess woke up, expecting the frog to be gone. But to her surprise, he was still there, looking at her with his big round eyes. "Good morning, princess," he said cheerfully. "Are you ready for another day?" The princess sighed but nodded. She knew that she must honor her promise, even if it felt awkward. That evening, as they sat down for dinner once more, the same routine began. The frog knocked on the door, hopped up to the table, and ate from the princess's golden plate. He asked to be carried to her bed again, and she agreed, feeling a bit more used to the strange arrangement. On the third night, the frog joined her again. This time, however, the princess felt a little less annoyed by his presence. She even smiled a little when the frog told her, "Thank you for keeping your word." As she lay down to sleep, the princess started to feel a hint of kindness for the little frog. She thought, maybe he's not so bad after all. And with that thought, she drifted off to sleep. But little did she know, this third night was about to bring a big surprise, one that would change everything. Now let's take a break and learn some new words that appeared in the last chapter. The first word to learn in this chapter is dinner. Dinner means the main meal of the day, usually in the evening. For example, the frog arrived at the palace during dinner. Next we have noise. Noise refers to a loud or unpleasant sound. For example, the princess heard a strange noise at the door. Another word is voice. Voice is the sound a person or animal makes when speaking or singing. For example, she heard the frog's voice calling from outside. The fourth word is true. True means real or accurate, not false. For example, the frog reminded the princess of her true promise. Now let's look at scared. Scared means feeling afraid or frightened. For example, the princess was scared when she saw the frog at her door. Moving on to lift. Lift means to move something to a higher position. For example, the frog asked the princess to lift him onto her chair. The next word is plate. Plate is a flat dish for serving or eating food. For example, the frog ate from the princess's golden plate. Now we have king. King refers to a male ruler of a country. For example, the king told his daughter to keep her word to the frog. Let's also discuss sleep. Sleep means to rest with your eyes closed. For example, the frog slept on the princess's bed at night. Finally, we have forget. Forget means to fail to remember something. For example, the princess had forgotten about her promise to the frog. Chapter 3. The Frog's Transformation. When the princess awoke the next morning, she stretched and yawned, thinking it was just another day with the frog. But as she opened her eyes, she gasped in surprise. There, standing at the foot of her bed, was not the little green frog she had grown accustomed to, but a handsome young man. His clothes were fine and royal, his hair golden and shining in the sunlight that streamed through the window. His eyes were kind, and they sparkled as he looked at the princess, smiling warmly. The princess sat up, wide-eyed and confused. "Who are you?" she asked in disbelief. "Where's the frog?" The young man stepped forward and bowed gracefully. "Dear princess," he said, "I am the frog. Or rather, I was the frog. But you have broken the spell that was cast upon me by a wicked fairy. I was once a prince, but the fairy turned me into a frog many years ago. I could only become my true self again when a kind-hearted princess allowed me to eat from her plate and sleep on her bed for 3 nights. The princess blinked, still trying to process what had happened. "So, you were never really a frog?" she asked, her voice soft and full of wonder. The prince nodded. "Yes, I was always a prince, but I was trapped in the body of a frog. It was a terrible curse, and for a long time I thought I would never be free. But you, dear princess, kept your promise and showed me kindness. And now, because of you, I am free." The princess felt a mix of emotions. She had not wanted to befriend the frog at first, but now she was happy that she had. She smiled shyly at the prince and said, "I am glad I could help you, but I never imagined this would happen." The prince laughed gently. "Neither did I, but here we are. And now, I would like to ask for your hand in marriage, as you have not only saved me but shown great loyalty and kindness." The princess blushed. She had never expected such a turn of events, but she felt a warmth growing in her heart for this prince who had once been a frog. She thought back to the times they had spent together, how he had always been polite and grateful, even as a frog. Slowly she nodded and said, "Yes, I will marry you." At that moment, there was a knock at the door. The princess's father, the king, entered the room, looking curious. "What is going on here?" he asked, seeing the handsome young prince standing in his daughter's room. The prince stepped forward and bowed to the king. "Your Majesty, I am the frog who has been spending time with your daughter. Thanks to her kindness, I am now free of the spell that kept me trapped in that form. I come from a neighboring kingdom, and I would like to ask for your permission to marry your daughter." The king, though surprised, could see that the prince was sincere and that his daughter was happy. He smiled warmly and said, "If my daughter is willing, then I give you my blessing. You have shown great patience and honor, and I am proud to see that my daughter has shown kindness in return." The princess and the prince beamed with joy. Plans were made quickly for a grand wedding, and the news spread throughout the kingdom. The whole palace was decorated with beautiful flowers, and guests from far and wide came to celebrate the union of the princess and the prince. The people marveled at the story of how the princess had broken the spell and how the frog had turned into a handsome prince. On the day of the wedding, the princess wore a gown of shimmering gold, and the prince was dressed in his finest royal robes. They exchanged vows in front of all the guests, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. The princess's heart was full of happiness, knowing that this unexpected journey had led her to find true love. After the wedding, the prince took the princess to his own kingdom, where they were greeted with cheers and celebrations. The prince's people were overjoyed to see their ruler return to his true form, and they welcomed the princess with open arms. Together, the prince and princess ruled the kingdom with kindness and wisdom. They always remembered the lesson they had learned, how important it is to keep promises and to show kindness to others, no matter how unusual the circumstances might be. And as for the loyal servant Heinrich, who had stayed by the prince's side throughout his enchantment, he was overjoyed to see his master happy once again. Heinrich had always believed that the prince would be free one day, and now that the day had come, his heart was filled with joy. The prince and princess made sure Heinrich was honored for his loyalty, and he remained a close and trusted friend to them both. And so, the prince and the princess lived happily ever after. They never forgot the magical journey that brought them together, and their kingdom thrived under their care. The tale of the frog prince and the princess who kept her word became a legend, reminding everyone that true kindness can break even the most powerful of spells. It's the end of the story. We will once again learn together some other new vocabulary in the story. The first word to learn in this chapter is surprise. Surprise means an unexpected event or thing. For example, the princess woke up to a big surprise. Next we have handsome. Handsome means good-looking, especially for men. For example, instead of the frog, a handsome prince stood before her. Another word is change. Change means to become different. For example, the frog had changed into a prince. The fourth word is kingdom. Kingdom refers to a country ruled by a king or queen. For example, the prince asked the princess to come to his kingdom. Now let's look at marry. Marry means to become someone's husband or wife. For example, the prince wanted to marry the princess. Moving on to coach. Coach refers to a large carriage pulled by horses. For example, a golden coach arrived to take them to the prince's kingdom. The next word is happy. Happy means feeling or showing joy. For example, the princess and prince were very happy together. Now we have spell. Spell refers to magical words that have special powers. For example, the princess broke the spell that turned the prince into a frog. Let's also discuss promise. Promise is a statement that you will definitely do something. For example, the princess kept her promise to the frog. Finally, we have together. Together means with each other. For example, the prince and princess lived happily together.